to get used to this. This is not a tribute song. This is the voice for the voiceless, because another voice is gone. Again, this is not a tribute poem. This is a voice for the voiceless. We lost another one. Thank you. And I remember I put that out. This is before I had even performed under the name Holy Poet. The name my mother gave me is Cohen. So, it's important. If people are like, it's not canware, it's gunware. I'm like, no, it's not gunware. It just sounds big, but it's not gunware, it's gunware. And the villagers taught me in the green room that gunware means print. So a lot of residents in G-Thing, for example, that's one of the first places I heard, gunware policeman. What the villager was talking to me, that's in the root word for core. So when we say core is print, the root word for core came from gunware as well. And you guys are saying that core doesn't mean print, because that's root word. And that's one of the misunderstandings that travels over time. Which I find is very interesting. I think what's important in the learning process is the unlearning process. When we decide, this is what I believe, and as you're coming to me with information that contradicts what I believe, what are my choices? I can plug my ears and run away, or I can be like, what's this guy? Right? Or I can open up and hear it. Like, what do I believe? Why do I believe that? Where does it come from? And I think that's probably the theme I want to go with this. Let's take it back as far as we can go. Let's try to find the roots of whatever we're addressing. Instead of us only focusing on 1984, let's focus on 1800 and what was happening before that. Let's focus on 1700 and what was happening before that. What was working, what wasn't working. In businesses, if anybody works an office job, they probably heard the term best practices. This is what company does with best practices. We should, as a teacher, they always said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't. For issues of time, don't reinvent the wheel. If someone's already found a successful way to do it. And I feel that happens a lot with, I feel the oppressors and the people who commit acts of tyranny, they do a better job of that. I believe that, when the central government of various nations want to deal with a group of people, regardless. So whether we're talking about the Chinese government and the students protesting in Tiananmen Square, or whether we're talking about the Sri Lankan government and we're talking about the Tigers, or whether we're talking about the Israeli government, the United States government, and the Palestinians, or whether we're talking about the people of Punjab and the central government of India, they all seem to be reading out of the same manual, which is figure out what unifies them and break it. And Hamundasar, for example, as history has shown improvement, was this epicenter, was land provided by the Mughal emperor to create this epicenter, which wasn't just for us. Learning that it was two and a half stories high. So it was even lower, because of laws, the caste, that people of lower caste couldn't build 3-story houses. The fact that we walked down instead of walking up. The fact that, I was saying, the only thing I remember as a child, that I haven't been here since I was very young, was the sundial. And, there were focuses on the arts, there were focuses on science. These things don't exist anymore. What I know now about Hamundasar is, if you're a beautiful baby with a beautiful voice, it won't let you sing. And I don't think that was the case, forever. But again, some people don't even realize that Pakistan, is less than 100 years old. And they think that it's always been there. And what I realize is, if we don't let people realize the origins of what's happening, people are going to think that that's the norm. And people are going to think that it's acceptable, that our sisters can't sing in such a box out. Or people are going to think that it's acceptable, that it is no longer the inclusive place that it is. They did a really good job of busting our spirits, I think, this time around. I think a lot of people left after that feeling that they didn't have a home anymore. I wish I was wrong, but I know everybody in this room probably knows somebody who's directly affected by it. Whether it be a family, I had relatives in Germany who had to leave the job immediately because they were completely arrested them. Because, everybody focuses on the event of June and October of '84, but people don't realize what happened 10 years after. You know, people don't realize in Toronto, there's a newspaper article talking about how the U.S. military should hire KPS Gill to deal with the insurgency in Afghanistan and Iraq, because he's really good at it. And the truth is, he was really good at it. You know, what does one thing color up? For those who know who he is, what he helped unearth from 85 to 95 were young men, 300,000 gone, missing. He understood that you need to finish the job. You need to wipe this out. Get rid of all the memories. So, and the same way as, you know, we learned about the Nahang, how they kind of disbanded and went into the jungle after, you know, after the time of the Guru, before the missiles were all reconciled. In that same idea, in modern times, things have been happening. So, what I want to do is, I don't want to make this about '84, but at the same time, I don't not want to make this about '84 because it makes me feel, and I know it makes other people feel, and that's what's going to motivate us to go back and find out when everything is working and how we can make that happen again. And we all need to realize that we're part of something, but we need to contribute to what that is. Whether you want to call that mainstream 60, whether you want to call that being Jubby, whether you want to call that being a Brit, whether you want to call that being a person of the first world, or a person of the diaspora community, or even a human being, a sovereign human being. You decide what that means. I don't get to decide what that means. You know, you decide who you are as a person and what you're going to do about the future. So when '84 came to me, when I was re-educated, when I mean re-educated, I mean I was fortunate enough to be presented in front of people who had the facts, who had the documentation, who had the eyewitness accounts, and stories were vastly different from what I heard. And when I saw an interview with this elderly gentleman who had half his beard shaved off, that was probably like the straw that broke my back. And a lot of anger came, and I'm sitting there like, oh, it's 2005, let's go get revenge. You know what I mean? And what I realized is that's not who we are. Again, as I said, we bounce that. You know, we don't hold grudges. We bounce that. What the Gurus recognized was that there's an abundance of beauty and intelligence and spiritual contributions that all these people have, regardless of their walk of life, and we need to hear it all. That's why all four doors open in us. They want to hear it all. I'm guilty of it too, thinking that, you know, we're good. We don't need to converse with anybody. So the last piece I'm going to do, in the interest of time, is sing with me. The chart is called Sing With Me, and it is about '84, but it's to remind ourselves that we've been through worse, and we may go through even more. But that's who we are. And that's what builds the skins that we have, and that's what makes us beautiful people we are. So again, I'm going to apologize for giving that vision of the gentleman missing half his beard. He was crying, and he said, I'm one of you. Why are you doing this? He goes, I live here. I'm part of you. Why are you doing this? And he was legitimately perfectly confused. And what I realized is, lines have been drawn, but it's up to us to take a side, or it's up to us to kind of be the first people to take that line and kind of wipe it away. So all these lines are made up. Pakistan, India, actually, it's all made up. All these labels, you know, you're Jut, you're Sani, you're Punjabi, you're Gujarati, you're Palestinian, these are all made up. They're all going to change. You know, in another 1,000 years, we're going to have a whole bunch of different countries. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to change. The stuff is real if we make it real. The stuff needs to be acknowledged if we acknowledge it. But if we don't acknowledge it, we don't give it that power. So I'm going to hand out this one. Called Sing With Me. You guys all right? Am I boring you guys? Are you all right? Yeah. All right? Okay. A couple thumbs up. I'll give you a bit more in the accent. Can we ever really truly understand war? until we can poke our fingers through the bullet hole, smell the gunpowder, and be devoured by the history of misery it gives to me, thinking about 84, wondering, don't those troops have families of their own? Don't they realize the pain they cause? Listen to my poem. No can wash away the blood, but the stains will remain in the marble of my mind. Only love can flood the heart without drowning the hate. Suffocate my art with the truth people relate, cause if we forget it happened, it will happen again. Like Darfur, Gaza, Sri Lanka, Darfur, and Yemen. Right? Rwanda off with the stroke of my pen, like I apologize. Again, this is a very touchy one, an extremely touchy one for me, because it reminds me of a lot of the images that I went through. So, and spoken, and again, we do a little bit of training right now. If you ever go to a spoken word situation, and the person's performing, and they kind of lose their set, you know what they do? They go to snap. You guys ever heard of that? Kind of an extra thing at the end, don't even clap and snap. So if you guys want to snap while I redeem my marbles, that'd be awesome. Let's go. This is so cool. You guys have no idea. Shed a tear when blue stars appear in my mind. It reminds me to give purpose to my life. Though I share the rage, I also share the age with the orphans of the conflict. It's so hard to turn the page when my mother was like a widow. Looking out the window, I can feel the wind blow. It's what they've been through. And what I see, but I'm yet to never feel. Tattered crowns on the ground, acoustic sounds drown what I hear. I should be hearing what I'm fearing is a lot, man. It's sad that they're lost, but even worse, they're forgotten. Bodies rotten, bulldozed at a blaze that they came to fight the terror, but it's all a masquerade. Blast away the buildings. Shoot the women and the children, drag us by our hair. But don't dare think we'll disappear. We gon' pick up the pieces, cause history teaches that freedom only exists if we can share it. No more battle drums. Let the beatings of our heart be the percussion, the passion, the common rhythm to the song of hope we all sing. With a tune that's so melodic and harmonic that we all sing. Only tears when the music hits our ears. A fusion of revolution and love make it clear to me that I hope we can all sing true. And when we can, I hope you sing with me. Thank you very much.